The most recent news out of Mexico seems to always involve violence. Just last week, a new gang announced its replacement of the once feared, now disbanded La Familia drug cartel. Violence has been terrorizing the Mexican state of Michoacan as the drug wars have escalated. But what many don't know is that Michoacan is also the winter home to an amazing assembly of some of the most peaceful creatures on Earth, monarch butterflies. Each year, tens of millions of butterflies from North America make their way down to a small patch of forest in the Sierra Madre Mountains. It's one of the world's largest migrations, and monarchs are the only butterfly known to make a two-way migration like birds. Recently, a group of almost a dozen local butterfly enthusiasts headed down to Michoacan through a trip run by the Milwaukee-based Conocer program. Lake Effect Stephanie Lecce was among the group who went last year, and she brings us this report on the migrating monarch population.
The day the Conocer group of 5 Milwaukeeans and 2 Mexicans go to the Sierra Chinqua Butterfly Sanctuary, it is sunny but still chilly. The monarchs, sensitive to the cold, stay mostly in the towering oyamel fir trees to conserve energy. They clump together for warmth, which they get from each other and from the bark. Observing them is Jackie Reed Detloff. She's the founder and director of the Conocer program that's brought the Milwaukeeans to see these butterflies.
You see these clumps, like they're just like clumps at the end of a limb. This year you can see all the way on the trunk, and you see them on the tops of the trees and the sky.
That's because this reserve is one of about 12 sites in Mexico where most of the monarchs in eastern North America go to winter. Forests like these can host as many as 50 million mating monarchs in just a few acres. But of course, the few that do flutter around make no distinction between trees and their observers, like Milwaukeean Paula Holman.
And it feels just tickly, a little sharp, a little bit sharper. No weight at all, nothing. It's a magical thing.
Holman and her husband purposely seek out culturally immersive, eco-friendly trips, which they found in the Conocer program. Also part of the Conocer crew is naturalist Susan Winans from Milwaukee's Urban Ecology Center. Winans explains that these monarchs have flown as far as 3,000 miles to get to where they'll stay from October to late March. And she says scientists don't yet know what draws them to these particular spots. It could be just the right combination of food sources, climate, elevation, protection. They just don't know. But these monarchs won't return to their northern homes.
So these butterflies will fly to the southern United States and lay eggs in the southern United States, and it's that generation, their offspring, it's this group's offspring that will fly to the northern United States. And depending on how far they have to go, it might even be another generation before they reach their northernmost range. So it could take this group, their offspring, and their offspring might make it all the way north, but it might be their grandchildren that make it all the way to Canada.
Estas mariposas aquí es una generación especial, se llama Matusalén. Entonces,
¿Cómo se llama?
Matusalén.
Matusalén.
¿Es porque viven muchos años?
Sí.
Porque Matusalén...
Oh, Methuselah. This is the Methuselah generation.
Y su ciclo de vida
Because they
de
live so long.
Sergio Ambrosia Martinez has been a guide at Chinqua for 13 years. He says the Mexican government created the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve in 1986, making it illegal to log the oyamel trees in it that are so crucial for the monarch's survival. That, he says, was a problem for many indigenous people living near the forests, who had sold wood for a living.
El comisariado, siguieron presionando al gobierno de que
the commission, they kept pressing the government to give us a way to work in order for the community to survive. And then in 1997, they authorized this ecotourism, and with certain conditions, we were allowed to work here.
Martinez says the community now makes more from serving the thousands of ecotourists each year than from logging. But the deforestation that has already occurred and continued illegal logging are not only a threat to the butterflies, they can also create the perfect conditions for landslides. 2 weeks before the Conocer group arrives in Mexico, torrential rains unleash a landslide on the city of Angangueo. It leaves thousands homeless and kills more than 30 people, including Maria Savel's cousin. Savell is a restaurant owner, and the landslide forces her to close her business outside the El Rosario Butterfly Sanctuary for almost a week. When she finally could return, she found spoiled food and far fewer tourists to serve.
Pues como nunca había pasado nada, Hasta apenas que pasó esto, nunca, pues yo desde que he vivido nunca había pasado nada.
Nothing like this has ever happened before. Never in her life has she seen anything like this.
The Conocer group travels through the broken roads and rubble of Angangeo and manages to reach El Rosario Sanctuary, which had only just reopened days prior. Ironically, the rains that caused the landslide bring the butterflies closer to the ground, since they're attracted to moisture. It makes for a spectacular sight as thousands of monarchs fly around, land on, and otherwise swarm visitors.
To be in the middle of it and just have these things swirling around you and crashing into you it's just absolutely as magical as magic can be.
Again, Paula Holman.
We came through this town that has been just completely destroyed by the power of nature, this terrible destructive power. And then we come here and there's just all this life and all this beauty, and it gives you some little bit of hope when you see the sheer numbers of butterflies that are here.
Indeed, Morelia-based tour guide Carlos Juarez says it's the best butterfly activity he's seen in the 6 years he's been leading groups.
They have never been this active and this close to the entrance.
Despite Juarez's enthusiasm, the severe weather in Mexico, as well as in the southern U.S. last season, meant lower monarch populations. This year, experts say the wintering monarchs have nearly doubled in nesting acreage, a good sign of a rebounding population, though it's still the fourth lowest on record. Juarez says weather and natural population fluctuations are partly to blame, but the biggest threat to the monarchs is humans.
We have to do our part with reforestation, but also America must work on the preservation of the milkweed.
Milkweed is the only plant eaten by monarch caterpillars as they're born on the journey back to the northern U.S. and Canada. Conservation efforts of milkweed, as well as way station locations, i.e. places where monarchs stop over on their long journey, are underway across the states. That includes here in Milwaukee, where an agreement between environmentalists and developers of the county grounds in Wauwatosa has tentatively protected an important monarch way station. The monarchs are already beginning their return journey north and should be back to Milwaukee in May. Whether they will find what they need to continue their annual migration is another story. For Lake Effect, I'm Stephanie Lecce.
Lake Effect Stephanie Lecce produced our report on the monarch butterflies' migration to and from Mexico. The current Conocer group returned from their trip yesterday.
Then I turn into a monarch butterfly before it gets cold and it starts to snow.